Believe what you will about me. Call me as much of a Marvel fanboy as you think is appropriate for this situation, but I did not think that Joker was going to be good. It wasn't a movie that I thought I'd hate. It wasn't a movie that I thought would be terrible. It's just a movie that I didn't have any faith in for reasons that I've gone into before, but I was only proven right when I actually saw the movie. I didn't think that it was going to be a faithful comic book adaptation or a dark and gritty retelling of a classic comic book origin, or a movie that took itself seriously as a comic book movie, something that wasn't ashamed to be based on a DC comic. Which I was right. That wasn't what I got from the film. But I also didn't think that the movie would be poorly made or poorly directed. I didn't think that there was going to be a half-assed performance given by Joaquin Phoenix, and I was right. He gave it his all. It was very well directed, well staged, well shot, well scored. But the movie never really pushed forth enough of its own ideas. Never really carved out its own identity. Never really did anything to set itself apart from all the movies it was taking so much inspiration from, for me to consider it a classic or a masterpiece or a brilliant piece of art that's way ahead of its time. Now, if you enjoyed Joker, do not take this to mean that I'm discrediting your opinion or telling you that you're wrong or saying that you and I don't agree on this movie, which means that you have poor taste in films. Because that's kind of the opposite of the response that I've seen after this movie's come out. Instead of being able to have a civilized discussion about whether or not you thought the film was good, if you didn't like it, you simply didn't understand it. You're simply too much of a Marvel fan. You've never seen a good movie. You don't know a masterpiece when you see one. You don't know a brilliant piece of art when you see one. You can't understand what a character drama is because all you know is CGI and explosions and green screens. And that's really frustrating because most of my favorite movies aren't superhero movies at all. They're not even Star Wars movies. They're not sci-fi. But because I really like Captain America the Winter Soldier, I somehow am unable to accept and understand what I'm seeing when I watch Joker. Now, Joker didn't need a cameo from Superman or a mention of the Speed Force or a Green Lantern ring to show up in order for me to feel that the movie is secure in its identity as a DC movie. But what it did need was to truly root itself in the DC universe. Because one thing that I struggle with, well, actually, this is a multi-part one thing that I struggle with, is the character. The character, his name is Arthur Fleck. Well, that's the name that his adoptive mother, Penny Fleck, gave him when she got him. But as far as we know, that's not his real name. His name could be Joseph Kerr, it could be Jack Napier, whatever the case may be. But in completely changing his name and changing his surroundings, changing his entire background, you change his origin. And in doing that, you create a completely different, new, unique character. You cannot thereby take that character, dip him in white paint, give him green hair, and then call him the Joker, because he isn't. He's just a guy named Arthur who's emotionally broken. And that's okay. The Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne, Alfred thing doesn't weigh heavily enough on the story itself to qualify as something that continues to thereby root it in the DC universe. Sure, the last little bit of him going insane relies on him finding out that he's not the son of Thomas Wayne. But what if it wasn't Thomas Wayne? What if it was Lex Luthor or Maxwell Lord or Simon Stagg? See, when you can interchange the billionaire figure that it is, all because they're the figurehead of whatever location you decide to set the story in, you can make it no fictional superhero. Look at me. You can make it no fictional billionaire at all. Well, of course, it would still be a fictional one, but one that you can make up for the purpose of the story. Because, again, this isn't the Joker we know. This isn't a Joker who was forced to do a heist that he didn't want to and was knocked into a vat of chemicals by Batman, permanently making his face into the image of a clown, driving him insane, and then turning him into the Joker. This is someone who had his heart broken one too many times. This is someone who missed his meds. This is someone who couldn't get help when he needed it and just became a killer. This isn't a Joker that could realistically, I should say, build a criminal empire. This isn't a Joker that could realistically challenge Batman, not necessarily physically, but challenge his will, challenge his detective skills, challenge what he's capable of doing outside of punching people. This isn't a Joker who could terrorize Batman by capturing a Robin and beating him with a crowbar and then killing him just to mess with him. This isn't a Joker that could paralyze the Commissioner's daughter, kidnap the Commissioner, and attempt to drive him insane just to prove to the world that he's not the only one, just so that he won't feel alone. This is someone who just got lucky. And when I say he got lucky, I mean the first people that he ever kills are just some people that are harassing him on a train. It just so happens that those people work for Thomas Wayne, rather. And it's extraordinarily lucky that those people that work for Thomas Wayne know Thomas Wayne on a level that Thomas would actually have something to say, have something to feel about it. And it's also lucky, incredibly lucky, that Thomas Wayne would go to call the entire poor population of Gotham clowns, which would then cause them to have this clown uprising, going after a figurehead that only appears once more in the movie. They go for this like Robin Hood arc, and it doesn't work because they've never seen him in action. They hear a report, Thomas Wayne says a thing, we now have a new revolution. Joker has not earned this place that they put him on. Not until the very end, at least. Joker hasn't really done anything that makes him seem like the kind of mastermind criminal that you would want the Joker to be. And I know what you're going to say, he's not that kind of character. If he's not that kind of character, it shouldn't be a Joker movie. This movie pulls so many elements from Fight Club, King of Comedy, Taxi Driver, American Psycho, but it never really does anything new on its own. And it's very easy to say, what do you mean American Psycho? What do you mean Fight Club? Whatever. When the reveal comes that Arthur has been hallucinating his girlfriend, that's cool and everything. And it's the only, well, not the only, but one of the only excuses people have to compare it to American Psycho in such a way that it's an unreliable narrator. And what that means is that you can't trust what you're seeing through the perspective of Arthur because he's insane. That's fine. But what does that really translate to? He hallucinates situations where he could be happy? Like when he sees himself on the Murray Show. Does he only hallucinate moments where he can actually have a smile for some reason? Or does he hallucinate himself in positions of power? Because if the second one isn't the case, then he can't have imagined that all of this happened because of him. He can't hallucinate that he is this dawn of this movement because that's not the kind of thing that he tends to see. It's really easy to say, oh, he died in the car crash and the very ending of the movie was just afterlife, or that's his final fantasy before he passes away, whatever. You can say that same thing about any movie because that same sort of thing happened in Taxi Driver, but it actually gave you a reason to think that. If it weren't for the camera moving up in the way that it does, and then the story continuing after that, nobody would think that. But because they want this movie to be this Martin Scorsese-like character piece, this brilliant drama, they have to conflate it with some other movie that Martin Scorsese actually did do to make this movie bigger than what it actually is. And I don't have a problem with interpreting things a certain way, but it's almost like they're writing extra script. I'm a fan of things being left open to interpretation, but there's no evidence to support the things that people are coming up with. The character himself doesn't even have that much of a visible arc. And what we actually do see is interesting because it seems to make people think that it's okay for a person to go off on a serial killing bender so long as they blame society for not helping them, so long as they blame the system for not helping them. For some reason, because this guy cried a couple times throughout the movie, he's not held accountable for his own actions. And sure, he is in the context of the film, but as far as a character that people decide to look up to and aspire to, no, everything he did was okay. And I've seen this comparison, that Joaquin Phoenix is the perfect protagonist version of Joker, while Heath Ledger is the perfect antagonist version of Joker. I'll talk about Heath Ledger at some point in the future, but I don't feel that Joaquin Phoenix's Joker captures any spirit, any essence of the character. The Joker is more than someone who's hurt. The Joker is a gangster, is a mastermind, is an anarchist. He's an agent of chaos. This Joker is basically having a temper tantrum the whole film. It's not exactly the same type of thing. This Joker behaves entirely reactionary. Now, there are some parts that I've felt were very well done. Like, sure, he shoots the first two people on the train out of actual self-defense, but then he goes after that third person. He wants that third person to die. And that's interesting because it makes you root for something that you shouldn't be rooting for, but it also shows you that he's actually fully off the deep end. He wants to kill people. He wants whatever feeling he gets from killing people to sustain itself. So he's going to go after this last person and kill him. And that's great. It adds to the character. But still, it just sets off this chain of events that's completely luck-based. He's so lucky that someone was able to just record his stand-up routine at that random club and send it to Murray. He's so lucky that the people that watched that episode of the show responded so well. He's so lucky that Murray decided to actually reach out to him. He's so lucky. He's so lucky. And people have said that Zemo in Captain America Civil War was lucky. No. This version of the Joker must have +5 luck because things just fall into place for him. He is the most passive protagonist I've seen in a movie in a very long time. He doesn't cause hardly anything that happens in his own story. He's just simply going through the motions. And towards the end, he finds out that he's adopted and he becomes the Joker. And there's only so much you can say is made up in his mind because, the movement that he accidentally created still gets the Waynes killed unless that didn't actually happen and that was just something that he really wanted to happen. And if that's the case, sure the question could be asked, well, how much of the movie actually did take place? And that brings me to the final issue. The entire film is told from Arthur's perspective. You don't get a lick of the world outside his head. You could call it an artistic choice. I call it being a little bit too scared. Not having enough faith in your audience. Because if you can trick the audience into thinking that anything that you're seeing on screen could possibly be made up, could possibly be an illusion, could be a hallucination, then you can get away with anything. You can show the audience anything. And they'll be like, oh, it probably didn't happen. And do you know why they would think it didn't happen? Because it doesn't make sense. Any leap in logic, anything that doesn't hold up to scrutiny had to have been a hallucination. Because if it's not a hallucination and it actually happened, it's a plot hole. And it's a pretty big one. This movie is full of plot holes, and I just named every single major one I could think of. But because of the presentation of the film, no, it can't be a plot hole. It's just a daydream. It's an illusion. It's what he's seeing. It's not actually happening. See, if we'd gotten to see some of the world from Sophia's perspective, or even from Penny, who's also damaged but could offer a different perspective, or from Thomas Wayne, or from Bruce Wayne, or from Murray, any other character but Arthur, we could have seen what the world is actually like. And we could have seen how much of this is Arthur making himself into this image where he's just getting bullied and beaten down and he's the fall guy, he's the scapegoat for the entirety of Gotham? Or is it just, this is actually happening to him? Does he feel too bad for himself? Does he pity himself too much? Or is he truly a victim? The movie doesn't know, so thereby you can't know. You just have to take what you're seeing at face value or pretend that none of it's real. Or you can exist in the state in between where it's like, you know what, I will cherry pick. That's real, that's not. That's real, that's not. That makes sense, so it's real. That doesn't make sense, so it's not. Because if it's all real, then Arthur is, again, all luck based. This time it's bad luck, because for some reason the entirety of Gotham is dumping its shit all over him. But still, if all that stuff weren't happening to him and him alone, this entire story could have never taken place. An unrealistic amount of negative shit happens to Arthur in this film. But it's okay. Because did it happen or did it not? And really, that's the bulk of how I feel about Joker. I don't think it's a very effective DC film. I don't think it's a very effective character study. I don't think it's a very effective drama. And I don't think Arthur is a very effective, unreliable narrator. I just don't. I'm sorry. And again, if you like the film, that's great. But do me a favor. Try not to carry yourself with this ego that comes from enjoying it. I would really appreciate that. And the last thing I want to say is, I don't like this movie. Okay? But that doesn't mean that you can't, as I've already said. And that doesn't mean that it being the highest grossing R-rated film of all time doesn't matter. Holy shit, is that impressive. I don't have to like the movie to see the importance of this. The highest grossing R-rated film of all time is based on a comic book character. Is it an adaptation of it? That's up for debate. But it is stamped with the DC logo. And that's very important. Hopefully this means that the Golden Globes and the SAG and the Academy will start to take the genre more seriously now and recognize it as more than just one genre, but that comic book films can exist in any number of genres if executed in a certain way. Great work, Todd Phillips. You've created one of the most talked about films of the decade. Good job, Joaquin Phoenix, for giving one of the most moving performances I've ever seen in a film. And well done, Warner Brothers, for tricking the world into thinking they were seeing something that they really weren't. That's it for this one, folks, and I will see you very, very, very soon.